Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hey, I missed both events yesterday because of the Jewish holiday. Did they mention anything about notes or recording or anything?
They're getting the recording all sorted out. They're working on a system just to systemize the process, but they should be pumping those recordings out very soon.
Awesome, thanks.
Hello.
Hi,
Morning.
good morning.
Pete here. How is everybody doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
How are you doing?
Well, very well.
Awesome. Well,
Definitely October out there.
where are you?
New Jersey,
Okay.
Jersey City.
Oh, okay. Not far. I'm on Long Island.
Yeah, it's October out there too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Still pretty hot over here in Vegas.
Hmm.
Show off.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Well, it's not hot here. I think I heard somebody say it was hot.
Yeah, here in Vegas it is.
I live up by Yellowstone Park and it's 14 degrees.
Nice.
Oh man.
I always kind of felt like once it hits like 18, 20 degrees, it's like any colder, it's just kind of like you're just wearing another layer at that point. And I'm sure we'll get our share this winter.
Right out there right now.
I'm curious if anyone used the methods that we learned last night.
I was definitely more aware of how I was listening to people. I was watching their inflections, vocal tone, physiology.
Sounds like we should all go to Vegas and start playing poker with it.
If it doesn't increase our odds, at least we'll make some friends along the way, right?
That's a good point. And know who our enemies are, I guess.
I was trying it last night a little bit over text messages a little bit. and just asking very simple, short worded questions, and seemed like I was getting a lot more story told just over a text message than I guess I'd normally expect. So
Yeah, who's that? Who's that communicating?
Oh, this is Leland.
Hey, Leland, how are you, brother?
I'm good. How about you?
Hey, it's Sean. Happy Thankful Thursday to you and to everyone. So, Leland, I just picked that up in midstream. So, what were you sharing about text messaging? And I think you're saying shorter questions.
Yeah, I was just trying out, just trying to apply a little bit of what of our training yesterday, and just talking to someone and just asking very short word questions and just trying to apply the question with the details given in the message that they had sent me, and I was getting like a lot more of an answer and like multiple large text messages, just them telling their story on what's recently been going on in their life. So I was just like really amazed about the amount of that I was just kind of recently learning about the person I was talking to. So
Yeah, dude, right. Well, congratulations on applying things right away. And if that's happening just through text message, imagine what happens when you're speaking over the phone or even speaking in person, because then the energy like exponentially grows. So that's amazing, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So happy Thankful Thursday. Very thankful for everybody being here today and what we're up to. And as we're beginning and continuing our acceleration, got some really interesting thoughts and conversation about today. And by the way, nothing we're going to be doing is randomized. Today, we're going to drop in the notions of what is the difference between Batman and Superman. Like, what's the difference between Batman and Superman? And how that's been a wildly effective application in my life, and how there's even some clarity to back up some of the things I believed about Batman and Superman in some studies that are being cited by Malcolm Gladwell in his new book, Talking to Strangers. So we're going to have that conversation in the prism of the integrity-based human influence model. But before we drop in, just want to say, Fernando, are you out there? Fernando was driving to Washington, D.C. last night at midnight, so I may not have him this morning. 3 seconds. Okay. Not yet, perhaps. He probably got to D.C. around 4 a.m. So any questions, thoughts, or comments, Tiffany? Let's keep everybody unmuted for a moment. We have remedied the muting challenge, but let's just unmute folks. And in case you are having any challenge unmuting, Tiffany, I think it's *6 to unmute. Is that correct?
Yep, and I just unmuted everybody.
Okay. All right. Tiffany's got some mute controls. *6 is also the mechanism to unmute yourself. I don't think you need to do that. You're unmuted already. But does anybody have any questions or additional thoughts and comments about our journey into step 1, emotional rapport building yesterday?
I have a question. This is Nate.
Hey, Nate, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to stay warm.
Awesome.
So I have a question, and this is regarding, so I'm in the phone sales business, and the challenge that I'm running into is the cold call, the initial approach to a potential client. My question is that how do I go from saying hello to getting into the process of, say, going into building an emotional rapport with the person when I'm calling them on behalf of a organization?
Okay, so what we're going to do, because that's a whole subject in and of itself. We're going to have a very dear friend of mine on one of the trainings in a few weeks named Greg DiPietro. Greg, and I'm going to give you a best quick answer, but I'll set this context. So Greg, and this is 3 different access points. One, it's the power of immediate disruption on cold calls. Second, Greg to demonstrate the exponential power of differential. Like, we talk about mastery is about massive differences as we go between okay, good, great, and mastery. So when I hired Greg, was a decade ago, Greg had gotten one of 4 positions to compete for a job. And the first 3 people over about a 3-week period booked 0 meetings, 0 meetings, and 0 meetings, 0, 0, and 0, and said, oh, the leads are terrible. It's like, you can't do anything with this. And with the same grouping, Greg booked 30 meetings. So he wasn't just 30 times better. He was infinitely better because there's no number you can multiply times 0 to get to 30. Okay. And finally, the access is that there really is a way, but it's much more compressed and different than the model we're talking about, because the key thing in any meet and everyone, in any conversation with people, is to disrupt knowingness and their default no. So like they hear you on a phone, you're a stranger equals cold call, equals sales, equals no, right? Like all that happens in a split second. So with strangers in space, we're not as hard at default no. Let's say in a networking environment, we're coming there and people think they're going to be chatting, communicating. So they're still at a softer default no to a bottom line yes to buy from you, but they're at a softer default no, which is why we have an easier access to the communication. So my most simple point is it still needs a disruption of knowingness. So it needs something to be done to scratch the record, to break the pattern, to get you into some form of communication, whether off default no hang up. It's like cold call default no hang up. So that there's a pattern interrupt. And Greg is a genius at that initial pattern interrupt. I'm going to have him on for an hour and a half training about 3 weeks from now. But I would say quickly, it has to be a question, a disruption, and just something completely different that people would ordinarily do. So it's not scripted. It's a feel dynamic, but it might sound something like, hey, Nate, how are you? And like Emil here say, listen, this is not a cold call. I'm not selling anything. I'm here to educate and train, transform. Well, actually, I may be selling something, but I'm educating. Make them laugh. Make them smile. Do something, because you know what you have is a value. Do you think, Nate, what you have is a value?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So you're in integrity because you know you can support them, help them, but you know that poor little them, just like a child who's running around like picked up a knife in the kitchen, or they're about to put their hand in the fire, you know you need to protect them from themselves and disrupt what's happening. But let's say the child is running with a knife. You're not like, you're going to kill yourself. Like, you don't want to scare the child. Like, oh, hey, Timmy, hey, bud, like, hey, just, can I talk to you for a second? And as you approach, right, to create closer proximity physically, to then take the knife away. So my simple answer for right now is create a disruption, and then I would break into it much more rapidly, right? So I would say disruption equals some question, some statement, something to acknowledge the situation. Like, I know you think I'm a cold caller. I know you want to hang up on me, but just give me 1 minute. Can I have 1 minute, please? Like most cold callers go right into a routine and override through a script, and that is exactly the pattern the person is saying no to. So hang up equals high frequency. So it's disruption. And then I would go even faster, matching mirroring the fact that you just bought 1 minute. So you're living in integrity by matching and mirroring that you have 1 minute by saying, okay, disruption has occurred. So listen, Mary, quick question. Seriously, does your business want to grow? Just quick question. I know that sounds routine. This is not routine. Keep interrupting pattern. Well, yeah. Okay, great. That's what we're here to do. Can I ask you one quick question? Right? How did you come to work here? Like, what do you do there? Besides the fact you keep cold callers away from everybody, and you think I'm a cold caller. I get it. You think I'm selling something. What do you do there? And you're just creating a question to acknowledge the current situation, which is what you're going to do always. Like we said, hey, what brought you to Tony Robbins' event? We shared that yesterday. Like, you're in the present, dealing with a present reality that they're kind of trying to screen you out. And then you begin to work backwards from there. Again, realizing though, so I would say you bought a minute, right? And then I might ask a question saying, like, what would you need to hear from me that would have you give me 3 minutes or put me on to the right person? because that does happen, Mary, sometimes, right? Sometimes somebody survives this process of a hang up on the cold caller. And now you're in such, Nate, a unique space with them that they like you and find you curious and interesting. Like they might go home and tell their friends about you. Is any of this resonating and making sense?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave it there for now, right? But we have Greg coming up, and certainly, continue to ask additional questions, but I want to move into the substance of. So thank you, brother. Does anybody have, thank you. Does anybody have an additional question about anything to do with emotional rapport building? Any wins you want to share or anything? We'll take one more.
Sean, I just wanted to, this
Yeah.
is Pete here. I wanted to just make a comment that,
Hey, Pete.
I've been professionally networking since at least 2011, 2012, and I just wanted to compliment you on what just this syntax shift of networking versus ecosystem merging, ecosystem building. Just thinking about that, just keeping that in the back of my mind as a reuse of using a different word is changing everything at these networking events. And I've been recently applying the where have you come from. I was always very uncomfortable at these events because, like, what do you talk about? And just these simple notions of, you're here, I'm here. How did you get here? It's something in common, and it's been very, very, very successful for me in just making me feel totally at ease where I used to be very, very uncomfortable.
Well, Pete, you bring deep emotion to my heart and my soul because I'm an artist, right? And I just want to play my music. And that's what I love to do most in the world is share this artistry that I've worked so hard at. And so this is a gift that you've just given me. Thank you. And I promise you this, brother, I promise you, it has only just begun. And it's a lot. It's a lot, but we're going to get to incredible places. And let me give you a gift back and say this. When you're going to these types of networking functions, a new really cool accelerant, simple, cool, and awesome, is to say, hey, how about, maybe we have a lunch or dinner and you bring a couple people and I bring a couple people I know. This is the type of people I'm looking to meet. Who are you looking to meet? And begin to cross-pollinate. And all of a sudden, you've created acceleration where more things are happening for ecosystem merger, and you've got an immediate multiplier. So I would, as soon as you really connect with anybody, just connect a little bit, just start cross-pollinating. Like we did that last night. Dan Geltrude, America's Accountant, all of a sudden we're in a room and there's, 12 people, and I think there's about 7, unique business people to us. But I mean, this is like, a retina practice that has, 20-something doctors, does 40 million in revenue, and there's just so many fantastic things we could do for them and create value. They're a phenomenal client for many different lines of work that we do. So just an incredible night. And it was the outgrowth of just building a relationship with Dan Geltrude, and he becomes edified. Like there's this massive cross-pollination that occurs. So as you're out thinking about ecosystem merging, think about multipliers like that, where you bring a couple people, they bring a couple people, and now all of a sudden you're meeting multiple new people, but you're also positioning leadership. It's increasing your public speaking skill set. All kinds of things are happening through that multiplier. It's a longer conversation for a different day, but it's just a quick access. I promise that's good. I can't tell you all the reasons it's good right now and all the things to do with it, but I promise that would be an additional quick accelerant. Sound good?
Yeah, amazing.
Yep. So thank you. And so listen, everybody, obviously we don't have time every day for everybody to ask questions and share, but I love the shares. Email to Tiffany at tschoonmaker@calgalaw.com. And we're going to have a Calgary training email shortly, but tschoonmaker, TSCHOON as in Nancy, MAKER @calgalaw.com. Email questions, things you're happy about, feeling good about. And by the way, I would be massive. Actually, what would be even better for all of us, I promise, even for you. Strike what I just said. Post the questions on my Facebook page. Let's be Facebook friends. Post them publicly if you feel comfortable. If not, private message them. But these would be great places to ask questions. It would also get you some notoriety, relationship capital, It's always good to do that, so that would be fantastic. And we're going to be processing all of that and, you know, shaping each daily huddle around that a little bit. So with that said, I want to jump into something about Batman and Superman. And I'm about to drop something that I've been working so hard on for a decade with Michael Smikin on, and it's going to be like disruptive. And Tiffany, we can go back on mute for everybody if you don't mind. And remember, *6 to unmute if you need to. So, thank you. So, Batman and Superman. I have jokingly called Michael Smikin, who I had the privilege and blessing of writing a $1 million bonus check to. I've called him Superman, and I've shared with him that I'm Batman. And the differences between Batman and Superman go like this. Superman has all these incredible super strength powers, X-ray vision, like all kinds of really cool stuff. But somehow Batman is really the leader of the Justice League. And somehow Batman figures things out at a much more complex and deep level than Superman. And what brings this up for me is that integrity-based human influence in our listening and emotional rapport building, we can easily make some mistakes. And I touched on it yesterday, and I want to expand on it just briefly this morning. And the mistakes we make is that we think people tell us the truth. And I don't want to be dark. Like, well, you're so positive. Like, what are you about to tell us? I'm about to tell you the truth. People lie, and people lie all the time. And I've known this forever. It's how I figured out that Scott Rothstein was the largest Ponzi schemer in the history of South Florida, even though he tricked 1,000 people before me, even though he tricked all the people in his 300-person law firm, even though he tricked John McCain, the governor then of Florida, Governor Christ, even though he tricked Jed Bush, Alonzo Mourning, Dan Marino, sports superstars, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who came in and spoke to his law firm. He tricked all of them and the lawyers of all the people who wrote him checks for $1 billion. Because what happens is we presume people are telling us the truth. Malcolm Gladwell, you don't need to read the book. It's entertaining. I just mentioned it a couple times this week already. Talks about in his book, Talking to Strangers, 2 enormously important concepts that apply to our listening. And none of this is negative. It's just dealing with reality. And what's incredibly funny and bizarre to me is that most people think when you engage in personal development that you're in this Pollyannic, fanciful world of dealing with ignoring reality. And what I would share with people is I think that this program or content is absolute reality, and that most people overestimate the negative, underestimate the positive, and they apply negative to things that they should apply positive, and positive to things they should apply negative. That sounds like a Dr. Seuss riddle, but let me unpack it quickly. So this way, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 2 extraordinary challenges that we have in functioning in the world. And these principles will drop in under indispensable element number 5, level 5 listening. And we'll talk much more about that later. But here's the deal. When you're running around out there, we default to this simple reality. We function often as Superman. We think people are telling us the truth until we prove they're lying. Like judges do that in court. People do that every day in their life. People go, they're lying. Like, can you prove they're lying? How dare you say they're lying? It's so hurtful. It's so offensive. But people lie all the time. People lie to themselves. People lie about what they're feeling. People don't even understand. They just make things up for answers. But people also just lie because they don't feel comfortable telling the truth. And they're really good people. So we've like carved out this notion that people lie as though they're evil, and therefore we have to default to truth because we wouldn't want to think somebody is lying. And it gets us in trouble all the time. And I don't mean like big trouble. Sometimes it does. Like sometimes it keeps us trapped in bad business partnerships until you have my client, Arizona Mark Wachansky, and your life is literally on the line. because you couldn't believe that this person that you made a mistake calling your friend for 2 decades really wanted to steal your life literally from you, and every penny. And all the evidence said so, but he ignored it for a really long time. Or we may just simply ignore the reality that when somebody says they're fine, they're not fine. And they just don't want to be uncomfortable and tell you. So Batman doesn't default to truth. Batman understands that this is just a normal way that people function. We don't tell the truth. So the initial access point in our brief huddle this morning, we're going to wrap up shortly, is don't default to truth. There's all the empirical data in the world that says that people lie all the time. Now you go, well, how are we supposed to know? Like, what are we supposed to do? And the answer is very simply to realize there's a huge access, as we just heard from this morning from Lil and Nate. When you just begin to think of things slightly differently, all of a sudden things shift dramatically and rapidly. So all I'm telling you to do is to assess logically. Now you say, hold on. So when you say everything is emotional, it is. We're driven by emotion. People are driven by emotion. But logic still applies. So people are emotional, and that's why they lie. But logically, think about what's motivating them. Why are they doing this? They're obviously in a networking function because they want something, right? They're obviously having this conversation because they want something. And as soon as we begin to feel energetically things, the way people answer questions, their vocal qualities, their lack of congruence, don't ignore those things. So perceive everything in discerning what's actually happening, not simply what they're telling you. And then second, and here's a wildly interesting point, because people will go, well, body language is so important, Sean. How could you think that you can really connect with people because you can't see their face? And here's something that's wildly interesting and data proven in Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Stranger and the studies that he cites, that we think we can read people's faces, and we can't. So we think that people actually look surprised when they're surprised, but they don't. We think that when people are angry, they actually look angry, but they don't. And maybe sometimes the people closest to us let their guard down and show us more, but they typically don't even. And strangers certainly don't show us that. Now, you go, wait a minute. There's all these body language experts and things. Yes, but that's not you. And yes, if we can have micro-frozen frames of people's faces, they're going to tell us what they're feeling, and we see a quick, rapid burst of something, and we're a body language expert trained in every unique micro-distinction of facial expression, yes, then we can discern more. But that is not you, and it is not me. So the lesson for today isn't a scary one. It's an empowering one. It's saying go beyond what people are saying. Do not presume they're telling the truth. And this is why emotional rapport building is so incredibly important, because it gets us deeper into the conversation. And we know people are genuinely moving towards us when they're beginning to become more open, more free-flowing what they're communicating. And that can begin to increase the trust in what they're telling us, but it is not absolute or complete. Okay, that's the initial access point. It's not a bad thing, right? It's a lot to process. It's a lot to deal with. But to understand that people don't typically tell the truth. Like, oh, do you want to follow up? Yeah, sure. Like, that's a hard no. It's a hard no. Because we're listening more deeply to the energetic transference, the lack of congruence in the vocal qualities, and we are not sitting in the space of, well, they said yes, and they said this. Like, what they say doesn't matter nearly as much as how they say it, what they're not saying, if we got to deeper levels of emotional rapport. And this is going to be an ongoing topic we discuss. This is the beginning introduction of it. Second, transparency says, right, this is the idea that facial expressions, like we believe that people are much more easy to understand than they are. And we believe we're much more complicated. I mentioned this yesterday, but we are, but so are they. So let's not overestimate the facial expressions and qualities. Let's estimate what they're sharing with us, what we're hearing, how congruent they are, and all sorts of additional things about listening, which we'll talk about. So we want to become, here's the true north. We're moving towards, in our listening and our integrity-based human influence, becoming Batman, not Superman, and our emotional rapport building and our listening, which is not a default to truth, but in fact a presumption that they're not telling us the truth. That's our access. And last night, and Fernando witnessed this, Rob Gill was there to witness this. We had some amazing moments. Is that you, Fernando, or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Fernando, remember when I said, "Why are you lying to me?" And everybody laughed, and the person was lying? Do you remember that?
And the person was lying, and it was instantaneous. It was one of those moments like gut-wrenching and masterful to see you like navigate through.
Yeah. Because the person was essentially like, like I'm really uncomfortable with all this acknowledgement and validation. I said, how does this make you feel to receive all this acknowledgement and validation? And the person's like, well, it makes me really uncomfortable. I said, how do you feel with this acknowledgement and validation? He said, great. So why'd you lie to me? And I knew, because people lie, because they close off. And it was wild. So Fernando, quick social proof. The 60-second version of how closed off was that room last night to where did it end?
Okay, so to get into like a box, when we walked in, the body posture and like the level of friction was probably at about a 3 or 4 already, but still pretty tense. By the end, people were talking about
quick thought.
How
successful were the people in that room? How
Say again?
successful were the people in that room?
An insanely high caliber of human beings in multiple areas of business, what they're up to in the world, who they are individually. It was a very beautiful room.
Yeah. And where did it end?
It ended in Ferraris. It ended in sponsoring races in other parts of the world, selling textiles to like every country on the planet. It led to people laughing, some people almost crying, a lot of hugging at the end, almost like, and not almost, act like physically pull energy, like everyone was drawn toward each other in a much different way. We saw everyone in a much different light than what we thought we were meeting when we got there.
Yeah. And just so everybody is clear, it took me probably about an hour and a half to bring the room there. And the most closed off person, most skeptical person about what we're there to do and what we're up to, by the end, and this is a beautiful comment, it was having massive challenges extricating myself from the conversation, because without question, all he kept telling me about was every single micro detail about his children, where they are in life, what's happening, where they go to school, conversations he's had with them, things he's done. And it was a beautiful listening, but I wanted to get on to other people, and it was so difficult to get out of it. And for the first hour and a half, he was essentially arms crossed, not saying a word. And that transformation was possible. And the things that will happen from here are just magical and incredible if, here's the big if we have the appropriate follow-up process. Otherwise, it will mean nothing. It will mean nothing. Because the beginning of all this is emotional rapport building and conveyance of unique identity and pain, but then agreement formation is what it's all about, to make sure the things we want to happen actually happen. Although even if nothing happens, I truly wouldn't have wasted my time, because I did have a magical evening connecting with other human beings, but I still want far more than that for them and for me. Okay. With that said, Fernando, any final wrap-up comments for today, sir?
Complete on that. Just want a quick note. On your calendars, it might have that Saturday and Sunday. We'll be having calls. I just want to make sure everyone's in the know that it's Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll be having the calls. My apologies that it's on your calendar for Saturday and Sunday. The next call will be on tomorrow, and then Monday.
Yeah. And listen, I am incredibly thankful for you. I'm incredibly thankful to hear deep listening, application, and what I'm going to challenge everybody to do is commit in your life to mastery. not just new dabbling, because it will be very easy soon as this becomes consistent and dense, and there's, you know, some repetition in what we're doing, there always will be, to say, let me just go like read something else and connect with something else. I promise that what you're seeking, if it's more money and less time, more magic, sits here, and this work subsumes all work. That's the promise. That's what we're up to. Have an amazing day. Thank you. Happy Thankful Thursday. Take care.
Thankful Thursday.
Thanks,
Game on.
Sean.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.